gamers, and welcome to Season 5, Episode 10 of Rho Pi Gamma, the Gamers Podcast. I am your slightly under the weather GM, and with me, of course, is my co-host Howard.
Greetings.
And, pardon me. The reason why I am slightly under the weather is because of Gen Con. I'm actually surprised I was able to fight off the Concrete that long. I mean, a 4-day con, and I start getting it the day after. It was like as we were heading home, I starting to feel slightly like crap. So it's like, at least I had the courtesy to wait until after the con was over.
Cool. Actually, I didn't get Concord this year, unless I'm going to get it sometime later on this week, but I doubt it.
Yeah, I was to say, if you don't have it by now, you ain't gonna.
And I was in the booth, dealing with thousands and thousands of people every day.
Yeah, but I was...
Demoing?
Yeah. So, and actually, I remember...
Were you taking immunization supplements? I was taking, like, vitamin C. I was popping pills like crazy.
No, I wasn't, and next year I probably should.
My wife made me take these chewable vitamin C tablets, and I was eating them like candy.
I mean, I've been popping, like I bought Sunny D when we bought groceries on our way home, and I just ran out, and of course I got to go grocery shopping, after we record today. So, I mean, I've been supplementing vitamin C once I started feeling like crap, but I guess that was a little too late.
Too little, too late, buddy. I now know the secret to avoiding the Concrete.
Yeah, especially considering some of the people that I was demoing had some, not to go into too much detail, but had some habits that I was like, ugh. So I'm actually kind of not surprised that I got it. But oh well.
Sorry, dude.
At least I'm not like, it's not debilitating. Like, I've got like 3 stages of sick. I'm in bed, can barely move, throwing up. I'm definitely calling out of work sick. I've got I feel completely miserable, but I can get myself out of bed, so therefore I'm probably going to go to work even though I feel miserable sick. Note the fact that all of these are relevant to going to work or not. And then I've got the stage I'm at right now, which is I'm miserable enough for it to be an annoyance, but if I focus well enough and and drink stuff and eat and stay hydrated and whatnot, I can deal with it even without meds. Like, I'm not even taking any meds right at the moment. That's partially because I can't afford them, but also the fact that, like, I'm not that bad. I think so. Out of those 3 stages, having the least one is not bad for Concrud. And
sounds good.
And I sound bad right at the moment because I always sound and feel worse in the morning. By like later today, I'll aside from the fact of the back of my throat, I'll barely remember I've got it.
So for all of you out there listening in Gamerland, if you wish to avoid Concrud or have a better chance of avoiding Concrud, taking chewable vitamin C tablets, as well as I took ibuprofen in the morning and the evening to reduce any kind of swelling.
Yeah.
Those two combined with drinking plenty of water.
I stayed hydrated like hell during that weekend.
When you combine all of these, it tends to, at least in this very, very small sample size, not representative of the entire population, tends to reduce Concrud. So there you go.
However, I do have an addendum to that.
Uh-huh.
If you know you've got something bad, or if you think you've got something bad, as much as it actually even pains me to say it, don't even go.
Amen to that, brother. Woo, why would you?
Well, part of the reason is, especially if you're already, like, take Gen Con for an example. Great example. It's the biggest gaming convention of in the country. It's the biggest one of the year. It takes a lot of money to get there, to get your badge, to get your hotel. It almost seems like a waste if you don't go. However, if you know you got something bad, stay in the damn hotel room. And I actually say this because AUSA, I don't remember if it was AUSA specifically or just someone that a lot of the staffers of AUSA knew and worked with at other cons, um, actually died because someone had swine flu at the con that she was working at, and she caught it and didn't know it. She thought she had just regular flu, and it killed her.
Jeez.
Yeah. So like as much as it pains because I hate wasting money. Um, and yeah, so like if I've gone through the whole effort of going to a convention, getting a hotel room, getting a badge, there's a part of me that would want to go regardless. But if I know I'm really bad off and I'm contagious, no. As much as it would pain me, I no. After hearing that story, no, I won't do it, and neither should anyone out there. Again, I mean, okay, if you've got like the sniffles, you know, technically you shouldn't if you know you're sick. Period. But if you got the sniffles, medicate up, have hand sanitizer, and do your best to not help spread it. Actually, I just watched the MythBusters episode where they tested to see um, how easily germs could be spread.
Yeah,
So like,
MythBusters. Yeah.
yeah, they gave Adam this artificial nasal drip thing to simulate that he had a cold, and they did a test where he was, most of the people didn't know, and he, wasn't taking precautions, and it spread frickin' everywhere. And then they did it again, but with him warning people and him doing what he could to not to, and hardly anyone got contaminated. So if you know, like, if you got the sniffles, do what you can to not spread it. So, because it does start with you.
Yeah, speaking of all that jazz, they're for the next season they're redoing the format and they're going back to just.
Yeah, I heard that they're not featuring Tori, Grant, and Carrie anymore, and I'm a little sad at that.
I know. Tell me.
If for no other reason than Grant with his robots and Carrie because, well, it's fucking Carrie Byron.
Yep.
It's the poster geek girl. I mean, come on.
I can't believe they're doing it. But anyway, we digress.
Yeah. Well, I mean, well, I'd like to see how the new season turns out. How well it does, and I almost wouldn't be surprised if after that season they're kind of like, yeah, we need to kind of bring back the others again. So, but anyway, so this episode, aside from talking about Concrud and MythBusters, which at least was a decent segue, dude, I'll give you credit for that. We were actually going to review Gen Con, kind of tell how it was, what we did, whatnot. I'd have to say overall, I had a really good time. I had a moment or two that were annoying, and I had a situation that really kind of brought the whole experience down some. But that at least was in a small part my fault for me being a responsible adult. Heaven forbid.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. My to not go into too much details, my financial situation overall is tight to begin with.
Ah, yeah.
And after going down to visit you for a week, I was behind on a few bills, but I had an extra paycheck this month right before Gen Con. So I was like, okay. And I did the math. And I was like, all right, I can take care of all my bills and still have this much left over. Well, by the time Gen Con actually came about, I'd paid all but one of the bills, and had hardly no money left. I had like just enough to cover getting to Gen Con and taking care of the hotel rooms.
Ah.
Not much of anything for food or for gas and food to get home at the end of Gen Con. So I had no clue exactly how the heck my numbers got so screwy. Probably I did a little more spending and wasn't paying too much attention to it, which unfortunately I do have a history of doing. So we actually had to borrow some money for some friends twice. Once to make sure we could feed ourselves throughout Gen Con, and then once to actually make sure we can get home. And I owe those friends big. I'm going to try to pay them back as quickly as I can. Plus, I'm as a karma, I'm running them in a game of their choice, each of them. Because it was actually, I said, it was actually Matt and Allison and Miri and her boyfriend Ben. So thank you guys. Shout out to you guys, for helping this schmuck of a GM to actually get home. So I offered Matt and Allison to run a game of their choice, and Miri and Ben to run a game of their choice, and Matt and Allison picked Star Trek because I'd run them in a Star Trek game shortly a while back, and they wanted to revisit it. Miri and Ben are still picking because they were like, "What can you run?" And I spent the next hour going over what I could, all the various settings and stuff that I've got in my head. So, but so that unfortunately added some stressors to the overall experience. And there was a moment where something happened while working with AEG. I'm not blaming anyone specifically, but it was a crime of circumstance that actually happened to hit one of my buttons. And that was, I was told to do one thing, which I could do, and I was told that thing because I couldn't really do the other thing that needed to be done. And then while I was waiting to, kind of see what else I could do along the lines of what I was originally told, I got pulled to do the other thing, and then kind of got shoved in a corner, and then shuffled around tables so that no one could find me to relieve me. It wasn't actually until after you showed up and were helping me demo one game that the head guy finally found me. He said he was looking for me for like 20 minutes to basically tell me I could go. So that irked me a little. And like I said, I'm not necessarily blaming anyone. It's just one of those, like, if you come and ask me to do something, that's beyond what I was originally told, that's great. I mean, if you add, I'll probably tell you yeah. I mean, it's a good 90% chance I'll say yes. But if you just, you're doing this, and I'm like, that wasn't what I was originally. That was like, it's completely outside of the scope of what I was originally told I was doing. That irks the heck out of me. So
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. A lot of confusion this year.
yeah,
Every year, but I mean, you got to keep in mind that the attendance at Gen Con is so massive, and it's getting so big that
yeah.
basically we're moving cities of people through.
Well, I you're right about the one thing. I actually heard that this was I don't have any exact numbers, but I heard that this was the largest Gen Con to date
Yeah,
that we had.
it
Um,
was
the
officially.
thing the thing though is that from my experience working with AUSA and seeing how like some other cons do things, I honestly find it difficult to see that they. And I actually put this in the feedback because yeah, the head guy for that takes care of AEG at Gen Con sent an email and was like, hey, we'd like some feedback. What was tell us what how your experience was, the good and the bad, and and would you be interested in doing next year? And I told him I was like, I wrote back, I was like, I'd be more than happy to do next year. But as for feedback, I was like, it seems like you all don't have a plan, and you all do these same events. Granted, the numbers are different, but you all do the same. They always do the big board game night, and they always do the L5R experience in Gen Con, right?
L5R experience is usually every other year, if I recall correctly.
Okay, but they always do the big board game night.
Yes, that is
Yeah.
every year.
So it really kind of baffles my mind that if they do that every year, why don't they have a set plan as a framework to deal with it every year? And then in which case you can just make some subtle adjustments depending on number of staff you have and number of attendance you're doing. But the basic, I mean, and I can understand wanting to do something a little different, but with that style thing, that's the games you're offering, not necessarily how you're handling the people coming in. Just do the same thing. Find out what works and do the same. I mean, because the way they actually decided on doing it worked pretty well this year, I thought, once we got it going. Um, so I was just like, come up with a plan and then just stick with it every year and just make subtle adjustments, not having to come up with a whole brand new plan every year at con. Because I don't know if they actually did have it all planned out, but it didn't seem like it from our end. It seemed like that they were kind of coming up with it as they were going, and that I was just like, you do this every year. How is this a hard thing to figure out?
I
So
don't know. Is Gen Con, they moved. One of the things is they keep moving where these events are occurring. So it changes the number of people they can have. It changes the dynamics of how the people come in. It changes the arrangement of the tables.
well, see,
So
to me, those are subtle changes that could be made to the overall plan. You still you figure out a way of how once you know how they can come in, how you're going to deal with them coming in, how they're going to deal with them getting the swag they're supposed to get, and get to the games that they want to. And then location and number and so forth is in my opinion subtle changes, or at least how it's working out in my head. It wouldn't have been that hard to it wouldn't be that hard to adjust once you had a framework based plan.
here's the problem. It's quite simple. It
Okay.
works great in your head because it's you doing it. If you are trying to direct, 1,000 volunteers, most of whom you just picked up that very day that have zero training in an area that has absolutely no security, i.e., anyone can just walk in and screw up your plan, and you're dealing with a lot of money reporting, and you're trying to keep that all controlled. Plus, you have to keep the swag under lock and key until you actually distribute it. And keep in mind, lowest common denominator. I mean, I was just during the big board game night just trying to get people to stand up by row by table, and I was running into problems
Well,
just
that was
because.
that was the L5R experience, not the board game night. But I see what you're getting at with that, and you are right.
Yeah, L5R experience. My apologies. So, um, it is a lot more difficult to move mass amounts of people unless you have a well-trained military like staff who follow. The main problem is people don't follow orders, and that's just the way it is because you're like, well, I tell you to do this and you go do this and it'll work fine, but that's not what happens. You have remember, you also have there's as far as command structure goes, it's not necessarily always clearly defined.
Yeah,
Even if it were clearly defined, that doesn't necessarily mean the command structure is always there at the same time. The people setting it up, the command people are in the booth. That means the people setting up the event in the event hall may be a completely different team. So they may have a different idea. How there is no one vision because there's no one person in charge all the time, and that there lies the problem. Yeah, I could
that
run it better.
that was actually another point I brought up was communication at the con needed to be better. And I also brought up having a bit more of a defined command structure, at the very least at the upper echelons. Because I mean, there was a lot of times, because I was wearing an AEG shirt during an AEG event, they would come to me with a question, and I'm like, I'm a peon, I don't freaking know, but my customer service training from being in retail for so long kicks in, and of course I want to help them, so I look around to try to figure out who I can direct them to, and I had no clue half the time. I started, by Saturday, Sunday, I started figuring out, some people that I could direct to for certain questions. But there were often times I was like, I have no clue, and I have no clue who the hell to send them to. But I at least, tried to seem like I knew what I was doing. So I was just like, let me see who I can find that can answer your question. Give me just a moment. And then I go around asking around, going, look, does anyone know the answer to this? Um, and that was another suggestion I put in my email, was just, I was like, okay, you've got one person, because it seemed like to me at the very least there was one person in charge of the booth area, one person in charge of the demo area. Because the one in charge of the demo area was my boss. But then that was it. And oftentimes, you know, the guy in charge of the of the tables of the demo area wasn't around, or at least if he wasn't around a lot when I was there. Let's put it that way. Because I'd look around for him every time in case I needed him for something. So I suggested, I was like, okay, so you've got, say take my area for example, because the booth area I haven't had enough experience with to really be able to suggest, but I did with the tables. You've got the one guy in charge of the tables, and then you pick a guy that like a season, someone that's been there a while, someone that's worked with the company a while, or at least worked with the people a while. You have one lieutenant in charge of because even our section was kind of split off into two. We had the demo tables, and then we have all the L5R stuff,
which are two separate teams.
Right. But I mean, so that's what I was suggesting. You have one guy in charge of kind of all of it, and then you have one guy in charge of the tables, one guy in charge of L5R, and then even like each of them might have one or two, and then you let everyone know. It's like, okay, these are the people in charge of this. If he's not here, you look for him. If he's not here, you look for this guy. If three of them are there, okay, we're in trouble. But you just do the best you can. But and again, I realize, like you said, it works well in my head. In practice, it may not. But at the very least, trying to set up something like this would be better than flying off of the cuff the entire time.
Oh, no, I agree. I mean, there's always room for improvement. But
Yeah.
as I have found, the main issue is, and it's funny, it's the same problem I have in role-playing games. And it's so we go into a role-playing game, into a scenario, and I'm ostensibly the leader, and I see what needs to be done, and I come up with a plan. And my plans, are typically good. I'm not trying to be a jackwagon about it, but I actually have sound tactical knowledge and strategic decision making. I've done it for years. But up against SWAT, I know what I'm talking about. All you have to do is this, and this, and we're good to go. 9 times out of 10, when I walk in, we walk in the scenario, and I give out the orders. It goes to hell in a handbasket, because most of the team just go and do whatever the hell they want to do. They don't follow orders. They don't, and all it takes is one. I'll give you an example. In our RPG games, do you remember the X games you were running? Do you remember the whole situation with Star Trek?
Yes. Yep.
That right there. That is why what the pretty little plan in your head never seems to work on the ground, because there's one dude that's like that. There's one dude that decides that he's going to do what he's going to do, or he doesn't want to do something, or whatever. Or you have a group of people who are engaged in social loafing. They'd rather not do anything. Also, your overwhelming majority of people, and this is no indictment, but it's all about psychology, social loafing, are sheeple. They need to be led. There's a small group of people on the planet who, in a vacuum, will actually do something. They will actually take charge and work, and they're very rare. The overwhelming majority of people require leadership. They need direction. They need somebody to tell them what to do all the time, and to take the responsibility. They don't want to take the responsibility, because if they mess up, they may get in trouble. So they're going to stand and wait until they are told exactly what to do. It's not a bad thing necessarily, because you don't want everyone to be independent leaders. But on the other hand, in a situation like that, where
having some leadership.
it's like in a military. Each level has increasing levels of authority. So in every group, there should be at least one individual that's slightly higher ranked. And in most businesses, they do this seniority system, whatever. So, but in that system, keeping in mind that, especially in those big events, many of the volunteers are, in some cases, grabbed the very same day. They're just given a shirt, told to show up, and told what to do. And if you think you didn't know what was going on, most of those volunteers are so clueless as to be, I mean, without direct instruction, not useless, but unwilling and unable to act. So you're right, with a better organization, that'd be great. Except what you're expecting is that those people. So in your plan, let's say 50% of the volunteers from your plan, right? So you have your plan, you've got your people set up, right? But
Mhm.
50% of your volunteers are literally showing up at the event as the guests are coming in, and those people have no idea of your plan because they were just found in the con earlier that day and told to show up at a specific time. So now, not totally, but let's say 40% of your staff walks in as the guests are coming in, and they don't know the plan, they don't know who's in charge, they don't know what to do, they don't know how to demo the games. What would you do then? And this is, I'm not
I
saying that
can
your
I
idea
can
is wrong.
well, yeah, no, and I can actually. I mean, it would take me a little bit, but I could actually, I could probably come up with at least something to help ease it in. And again, I'm not saying my plan was perfect either. And you are bringing up a very good point, but even that can be, anticipated a little,
Oh no, I mean I
just
understand.
just to
Again,
make it easier. But yeah, I mean, you are right. I mean, when you've got even a large chunk, even not necessarily a majority, but even a large chunk, of your staff that are coming in that day to help out, yeah, that's going to change the ball game some.
it's
But even then, if those that were there the entire weekend had a plan and knew what was going on, that could have helped those coming in as well. So instead,
it's
because unfortunately, I mean, there were times it was like even those of us that were there the entire weekend that
didn't
kind of
know what's
even
going on.
had half a clue didn't
No,
know what
I
was
understand.
going on. So
I will tell you a story. The first year, last year, that I went, we arrived at the booth, and I'll just say that there were some issues at the booth. It was nobody's fault. It was actually a computer error that caused it. But let's just say there was some confusion. And what happened is a lot of work needed to be done in a very short amount of time. A lot more work than they had been anticipated. They had a great plan. It was a wonderful plan. And as soon as they arrived, they realized the plan was completely, unacceptable, and they were scrambling to set up the booth in the midst of utter chaos. And when I mean utter chaos, it was kind of like humorously chaotic. Um, so there was a lot of volunteers standing around, and again, within the group, you had, a large majority of people who were standing waiting for orders. But what was interesting is a much smaller group, myself, Charlemagne, and a few other guys, immediately stepped in and began to just grab small groups of volunteers and do stuff. Just get certain parts of the setup done. And keeping in mind, most of the people who are taking charge and leading these little groups were just regular volunteers, and most of us, this was our first year. We just saw what needed to be done and started doing it. After the fact, we're standing around, after working for like 5 hours, we're standing around joking, laughing, and we were discussing L5R, which is one of the AEG games.
yeah, it's actually one of their biggest, if I'm
Yeah, it's one of their
right.
it's like the flagship game. And we're standing around, and we're like, "Well, what clan do you play?" And Charlemagne's like, "I'm a lion." And I'm like, "Huh, I'm a lion. What about you, lion? You, lion?"
Lion.
All the people that were leaping forward to take charge and just do stuff and lead groups were all lion players.
Hmm.
I think we had one crane, but I mean, every once in a while, crane do manage to do something useful in the law of
Hey,
averages.
hey! Come on now. Listen here, kitty.
But anyway,
Oh, which by the way, just because of the fact there is a Phoenix clan, I may have already converted another person to L5R.
hey, good.
Puff. She she
Uh,
actually she actually has a big thing on Phoenixes, and as soon as I mentioned, she was like, "Why did no one tell me there was a Phoenix clan? I would have been all over this game already."
oh, the fire chicken.
Yeah, that's why I told her. I was like, "Yeah, their joke name is the Fire Chickens," and she was like, "Yep, all right, I'm good."
Yeah, well, we'll get. Hey, why don't we get her in an RPG game? I'll run both of you. She can play Phoenix.
Actually, I brought that up to Miri and Puff, and actually I might be getting Liz into it as well because of course there is a unicorn clan, so there's
Ah, yes, the
horses.
purple pony people.
There's horses, so um, but yeah. So I actually I mentioned that you and I were gonna what we need to try to schedule out work out something with
Yeah,
you running me, and I might be able to bring them in on it too.
that
So
would be awesome and make it more fun.
oh yeah,
But anyway, as far as Gen Con goes, yes, there were some organizational issues. There
yeah,
always are.
yeah,
And keeping in mind being a reenactor, dude, reenactors are clusters. Like I guess my problem is that there's two sides to my brain. The first side is much like yours. I see what needs to be done. I see what can be fixed. If I were just put in charge of everything and controlled the world, it would run very, very smoothly. The other side of my brain is so used to being in like reenactments and conventions or whatever, where there was literally no organization whatsoever. And I'm just in the military mindset of where, hey, that's not my problem. And so I have just learned to kind of just sort of go with it. Because
yeah,
I'm so used to being involved in organizations in which there is simply nobody in charge. It's my famous quote from Red versus Blue. Who is running this army? Because 9 times out of 10, nobody has a clue.
yeah. Well, and I mean, I kind of realized that mentality of yours whenever I was working with you, and I was taking it a bit too because for me, I have to be, when I'm given specific parameters as to where my authority
Yes.
lies,
Yep.
I stay within those parameters unless I mean, sometimes I'll go and I'm like, hey, can I do this? Because I see a problem, and there were actually times this weekend where you know, I looked around and like, no one was at the table and people were coming up with questions, so I wasn't just like, hey, not my problem. I mean, I was fielding them. I was doing what I could, but for me, oftentimes, once the parameters are set, I don't go across them unless it's a dire emergency.
Amen to that, brother. Military
So,
training, dude.
huh?
Military training. It's a
Well,
wonderful thing.
well, and also at AUSA as well, because when I was in charge of traditional games, I knew the boundaries of my authority at traditional games. I was in charge of traditional games, and that was it. Traditional games ran beautifully. The rest of the con was a cluster, but even traditional games had its issues. I mean, I had to deal with stuff, spur of the moment because something would happen, or something would happen that it dealt with the whole con, and I had to chip in as part, as being actually part of the con. But after the years of doing with that, once you have the base plan, it helps.
You know what
and
the
and like
key
I
is?
said, I'm not saying they didn't have a plan, but it didn't seem like it.
Do you know what the
And,
key is?
huh?
Have a competent leader with a decent plan, and most importantly, have that leader select their subordinates that are
Yeah,
good subordinates. It is the people that work for you that make it work, the people that you entrust authority. And in your case, at traditional games, you were very careful to select the
yeah,
people that you felt. And whenever you messed up, whenever you selected someone that didn't quite meet your expectations, and I remember it caused all kinds of problems.
yeah. But it didn't happen again.
It didn't happen again because you got rid of those people and brought in other people, but that's the point. Competent leader, decent plan, good subordinates, and you can run anything with that.
Yeah,
In their case, oftentimes the people underneath them, they're it's kind of weird because during the big board game night, most of the volunteers had less information than the actual guests, in the sense that most of the guests actually had planned to be there, knew the time, knew basically what was going on. A lot of the guests, or a lot of the volunteers, as I understood it, I don't know how it works because I've never been part of this, but I was talking to one of them. He's like, "Yeah, man, I got recruited today." I was like, "Wow, huh, cool." So I don't, because I'm not even part of that.
yeah,
But yes, but seriously, dude, if like you and I have said that if for example, if the two of us, if they just turned over a section to the two of us and let us run it, no matter what it was, Doing wrong well.
You know, I'm almost afraid yet kind of hopeful that after my feedback, that is what's going to happen. It's not going to be, all right, you think you can do better? Here, you take care of it. I'm going to be like, all right, Howard, come here.
So, and that, I mean, well, it's basically why I work where I work now, and because they found out that if you give me something, it runs very smoothly, and so they gave me the stock area, and it ran very, very smoothly. I'm still proud of the fact that during breakdown, so we had the stock room this year, and during breakdown, my area of expertise, area of authority, was counted, stacked, palleted, and ready for wrap within 30 minutes of hard close.
Yep.
I mean, it was done. I mean, within, and it was well organized. And of course it was. And again, it wasn't just me. Like, I was just the one sort of like directing it. But I chose the right people to assist me, and blam, we got it done. Yeah. I did most of the actual physical heavy lifting, and I was the one who almost envisioned the plan. But I entrusted other people to do their parts, and you know what I didn't do? I didn't interfere with them. I said, do this. No, I said, do this, and then I would let them do it.
Yeah.
That's another thing that drives me nuts, and it does, and it happens in conventions, it happens in reenacting. It's don't tell me how to do something, tell me what you want done, and let me do it.
Yeah.
So
I mean, sometimes I'll be like, do this, but make sure you at least get this, this, and this taken care of. I don't care how you do it. Just make sure. If some things are supposed to be done a certain way, I would explain. It's like, this is supposed to be the end game. If you make it look like that, I don't care how you did it.
Well, now that we've talked about some of the organizational issues, might we talk about the fun stuff that happened?
Please.
What was your best event or your best moment of Gen Con? That's the question. For you, what was the best moment?
Well, I had a couple that definitely kind of rank or tie.
All right, throw them up.
For first and foremost, actually just being there.
Yeah.
After that first year, I was like, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Every gamer needs to at least try to make Gen Con once.
Yep.
It is pretty much the gaming mecca. And there is so much going. Get it in your head now that you are not going to be able to do everything you want to do in one trip, much less the 4-day weekend that you're given, because there is so much going on. Like Liz and I still would like to actually hit the Living Dungeon. The D&D Living Dungeon. We actually know someone who works there. She actually was in a booth next to Liz at OhioCon this last year, and we actually met her during breakdown. When I came out, when they finally dismissed me out of the table area after I was finished, helping and guarding stuff for Anthony. I went outside and Liz was sitting there talking. I didn't recognize her at first, but then I looked at the badge. She had a couple of badges on her, and that was one of the things she did at OhioCon was badge art. And I looked at it, I was like, oh, okay. So it was nice that we actually got to meet her again. But she was telling us all the stuff at OhioCon, and again, while we were sitting there waiting, about the Living Dungeon. So that's one thing Liz and I would love to try to do one year. I'd actually like to try to do some of the gaming that goes on.
Yeah, I know, right?
Because unfortunately, thanks to Rob, when Liz and I got really introduced into the whole convention thing, we turned into panel whores. So that's the main thing. Like Liz and I will do, even at Gen Con, that's what we did last year, and that's what Liz did a large part of this year, was just go to various panels. Because you learn so much from them. And actually, there was one panel that she was there with Fred Hicks and Jim Butcher, which was a big yay, obviously. So just being there was definitely a big yes to me. Being there with you was a big yes.
Dude, that was fun, man. Like the few moments we got to hang out together.
We actually got to hang out more than I thought we were going to.
That is true.
So, especially when I heard where you were and where I was, I was like, we are not going to hardly see any of each other till like, really right before and right after the con. And we actually,
Hey,
it seemed like we made sure that we got at least a little time every day, and that was cool.
yes. And keep in mind that you always knew where I was because I never left.
Pretty much.
Oh, look,
So,
it's daylight hours. I know where Howard will be.
um, let's just say, so being there with you again was a big yay. Um, the actually working with AEG overall, I'd say was a plus, especially getting exposed to a lot of the games that
Yeah.
they offer. Um,
Have you
you know,
played Doomtown? Did you get a copy?
I got a copy. I haven't played it yet.
Oh my God, Doomtown is awesome, dude.
Um, but like I've learned a little bit more about L5R, and I'm really thinking about getting into it at least a little. I'm probably not going to go like hardcore like I did with Magic because L5R changes too rapidly, and I currently don't have the finances to be able to keep up with it. But
And your wife would kill you.
yeah, she's already about ready to lynch me thanks to all the booster boxes you got me.
Woohoo! Hey, they have decorative tins.
Yeah, yes, I've got tins that I can store them in. Uh, um, but the game that I actually was supposed to demo throughout the entire weekend, Lost Legacy, I fell in love with as the con was going. So that to me was a big plus to the
You know,
weekend.
I never ended up with a copy.
Really?
Yes, I ended up with all kinds of other stuff, but for whatever reason, I never got a copy of either Lost Legacies.
Well, you did technically because you got the swag box from the L5R experience, and that
Oh, it
had an
does.
L5R version of Lost Legacy in it.
Oh, cool. All right, I'll work with that.
So granted, I like the part of the reason why I like the game was what is the story and the story behind it. Not saying that the L5R version isn't nice too, but this specifically. Um, so that was being able, and I actually played it in just about every version available with the two sets that are out for it. I played with a mega deck a couple of times. I played to where we just switched out a couple of cards between the two. Oh, yeah, you got me doing it. Damn it.
Sorry.
It's okay. Um, but yeah, I really love this game. I think it's got a lot of potential. I really hope they come out with more sets, and I'm already thinking of an RPG for it.
There are six. It's a Japanese game, and there are six sets in Japan already. So
Oh, okay.
whether they'll be released here, we'll have to see. I'm pretty sure the third one is in production.
Huh?
I'm pretty sure the third one is already in production.
Oh, that's cool.
So
Oh, yeah. I need to email him back. Sorry, I just got an email from someone that I need to email to cancel something going on Monday. Ah.
well, as far as I'm going, okay, let me give you mine.
Okay.
Oh yes, of course, Gen Con, the experience is always awesome. I work it, so I mean, you worked it too, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't go to Gen Con to play games or go to panels. I go to Gen Con to work my butt off. One of the top moments for me, other than of course seeing you, was seeing Connor Marks and Trent again, Trent Miller. That was fantastic.
Yeah, you lucky bastard.
I know Trin looks gorgeous in her gown or her dress with her 4-foot feather. That feather was impressive. A little like it surprised me because she took off her hat and I'm like, because they wanted me to take a picture of her and the two of them, one of our guys, and I took a picture and like, well, get the whole feather in it. So I'm like, okay. So I cropped it. You can see their faces and the feather, and I was doing it like upright. So I mean, it was a big feather. But no, she was amazing. It was great to see them and talk with them. I actually got to talk to them for about like 10 minutes. It was, which that doesn't sound like much, but at a con where you're working, 10 minutes is a long time.
Yeah, that's
That was
definitely.
another great moment for me was one of the Justice and Life, Shanto Justice and Life games. We totally didn't do what we did in gaming. Anyway, Shattered Justice
I'm
Life.
sorry about. I don't know about you, but I haven't really done much of shit in gaming since the last time because of Gen Con.
I actually have, but
Yeah.
one of the Justice in Life games was getting started. One that I had helped get going, and I was able to actually make it to their first session, and more or less, give them the, welcome to Justice in Life, thank you so much for joining. I'm a member of the Ravens flock, so I'm here to officially kick off your game and to introduce you to this magical world. And the GM was Joe, and I'm like, and Joe has our full support. So just keep in mind that everything that you do is going to have an impact. So have fun and kick some butt. And later on, I got a really nice message from Joe, thanking me so much because I mean, I think it impressed his players, because I mean they knew of me because in Justice in Life, everybody who plays knows of me. But the fact that actually, one of the members of the Ravens flock and the collaboration coordinator showed up and took time to show up at their game and welcome them seemed to have a profound, and that was cool. Like actually being able to. I mean, I met Joe, I met Brett, I met I met I met Rich in person. I've met all these guys who I know, who I've been working with. I got to meet in physical person, and that was very, very cool. So for me, because I didn't get to do any gaming. And then of course there was my sandwich, which was freaking awesome. I've been eating crap all weekend long, and you dropped that sandwich off. And one of the most peaceful moments is I was sitting in the stock room, with the hub and babble of voices around me, sitting on a cooler, leaning back, sipping my chilled Diet Coke, and munching on that divine sandwich. And I gotta say, that was
the,
really soft.
the food trucks are definitely a plus to me.
Yes.
Now, Grant, I mean, not all of them are great. We have come across some bad ones, but I always seem to find the good ones too. The what was it like the tacos without borders is always a good one.
Yeah.
Um, the spice box, which is what I was trying to get you, but they weren't there that day. Spice box was good. The Jamaican, I don't even remember, like Taste of Jamaica or something like that is where I got that sandwich from. That was really good. So I always seem to find the good ones. Sometimes I do have to go through the crap ones, but the fact that the food trucks are there,
Yes.
I think is amazing because granted there are some places to eat around the convention center, but some of them are a bit of a distance, and not all of them are cheap. Not necessarily saying the food trucks are cheap either, but they are cheaper.
Yeah.
And there is
But
food, in the convention center. The convention center itself does have places to eat, but those are even more expensive. Except there were a few of them that I scouted out that looked like the prices were at least somewhat reasonable, but I never had a chance to actually get anything from them because either, A, I wasn't hungry at the time, or B, I wasn't anywhere near them, or C, their line was huge. So,
I don't know, dude. It was just a cool experience. It always is, and it's the after hour stuff that I kind of enjoy, hanging out with you, going to your hotel, sorting cards, uh, you know,
which I'm assuming, at least for most of those other boxes that you gave me, you're going to want the lion stuff out of them.
yes,
Kind of figured.
and I'll hook you up with cards too. But
Wait.
but it's an amazing experience. It really is, and I love working for AEG. I really, 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 really do. They're a very good company. I have a good relationship with all the people there. Um, and they got really good products. We
Yeah.
aren't the biggest, but we're
No.
by far one of the best.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that.
I mean, Fantasy
Um,
Flight is huge.
yeah, Fantasy Flight, Paizo,
Wizards.
Wizards. I mean, all of those companies had like, 4 or 5 booth sections to
Yeah.
cover all their stuff. We had one,
Yep.
but I would have to agree that because of the games that AEG produces, from what I've seen thus far, the reaction and what I was hearing other people talk about the ones that I haven't, um, I would definitely say yeah, AEG is ranked up there. And
No,
I'm not
it
being
really is.
biased about it either. I'm being literal.
We no, I mean, from some guy in the booth, we never had a moment where our booth didn't have people buying stuff. There
Yeah,
were toward the very end of con. I mean, pretty much up until they kicked everyone out, we had people in our booth.
yeah.
Late Sunday, it kind of tapered off a little bit, but I do not remember a time during the entire convention where we did not have at least someone in our booth buying something, not just looking, buying,
Yeah,
and that's impressive.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, although I actually remember talking to Beth a little. I think it was on Sunday. She was complaining a little that she didn't have complete say as to what stock was brought because she was commenting that when she had complete say as to what stock was brought for like Origins, they had like barely a pallet coming
Yeah.
back. And then this year there was quite a bit going back, but still there was definitely less going back even this year than before.
Oh yeah,
So
it was pretty amazing. But no, I mean, I would say from my experience, despite the fact that I worked like a Trojan, which I do every year, I would say that
I was about to say my comment to that though is because you willfully let yourself and allow yourself to do that.
I do, I take pride in it.
Yeah,
But
well, so you sometimes bitch about it too, and I'm just like, dude, you only got yourself to blame on that one.
but for me personally, I mean, taking the good with the bad, it was another really fun, really successful Gen Con.
Yeah,
I mean, there are a few little things that I would have changed, or a few things that irritated the hell out of me, but that happens every year at every convention I ever go to. And all in all, man, this one was pretty freaking awesome.
yeah, no, I would agree. I would agree. Like I said, I mean, it had its down points, some of which were my own damn fault, but overall, I was glad I went. I don't regret it. I'd be more than happy to do it again next year. Um, and one of the things that I really like about Gen Con, and you started this, you jerk, last year, is being around all those gamers, especially going to some of the panels and listening to other people's. Because I actually, because of my breaks, I was actually able to sit in on a couple of panels that Liz was going to. So I heard, actually, one of which was about like mental health and depression. Which I found kind of funny that we had just done a couple episodes about that on here on Ropai, and actually got the girl's information. I'm gonna try to actually get her on the show, because she had some very some very good things to talk about. But just being around all that creative energy, I think is the best way to describe it. Gets your own juices flowing, and because it was thanks to you last year that what got me set on the current path that I'm on for my project. This year, Liz and I, are definitely kind of, doing a whole. We did a whole kind of step back, relook, reorganize, resurge, going for it, and it was thanks to Gen Con.
Yeah.
So, because like she's now pretty much my kind of project manager to help make sure I'm staying on course and and making the kind of progress I want to, because I set some goals that I wanted for this project, um and now she's going to help me try to make sure I actually get them. So, and of course, like I said, last year it was thanks to you that I got on this course to begin with. So that is always, I think, a great thing. And of course, I came up with like, not to mention the coming up with the Lost Legacy RPG that I'm gonna try to write, but I came up with another frickin' two or three goddamn settings. I was like, I've got enough of these things already. But it's just all that energy really just kind of got the thoughts flowing. So, but yeah, definitely. I'm not saying. Well, I think it would be great if every gamer could go every year, but at the very least, try to go at least once to
Yes.
Gen Con. At least once. Get your gaming group together, pool money together. You know, get the badges aren't that bad price wise, especially for a 4 day con. I think Liz. I mean, we got Liz's down near the end of the run, and Liz paid 80,
Wow,
80
that's not
something.
bad.
No, for a 4 day con of this size, no. It's now granted there are some things that happen at the con that cost extra. Some of the games you have to pay to get into. Some of the special events, like the ones the AEG does, you have to pay to get into. But there's so much that goes on that's free. It's still worth it. Um, and if you can get the badges early, you pay even less. I mean, I think this year their prices started around like 40 to 50 at the very beginning of their pre-reg. So yeah, I mean for a 4 day badge, again, that's not bad. I was the only reason why we waited was because I wanted. It took a bit for AEG to confirm I had a badge, and I wasn't going to have her buy her badge without knowing that I was getting in as well because then I was gonna I was like if I wasn't going with AEG I was gonna have to buy my own badge as well because I was going one way or the other. So but yeah, I mean, work with your gaming group. It's a trip to Mecca. It is worth it. So I'm not sure what else I can say about it.
No, I again, I think we have explained it fairly well. And
Yep.
if anyone doesn't know, they should go.
Yep. Yep. Highly recommend it. So you got anything
You
else?
okay, dude? No, I do not. I think Gen Con this year was a success, and I cannot wait for 2015.
And same here. But I meant in general for Ropai. Do you have anything else? Because obviously we're kind of done with Gen Con, and I ain't got anything.
Nah, I think it's a good place to wrap.
All right, a little shorter than usual, but that's okay. I think. Yeah, yeah. But anyway, so at least we're actually getting one done this week because we almost didn't because we're actually recording this one later than usual. So, but but yeah. So if you have any questions, comments, concerns, what the fucks, um, anything at all, just let us know. You can tweet us, uh, catch us on Facebook, email, on the blog, and on YouTube. Oh, which reminds me, we are finally getting that issue with the web storage space fixed. So I should be able to, once that gets done, make sure that we've got strictly MP3s of this season available.
Very cool.
Cricket.
No, very
So,
cool. So you did
yes,
get it worked out?
yeah, we're getting it worked out. It is in the process. Thankfully, a friend of Liz's, whose actually name is Byron, Byron Wilkins. He does a web comic as well, and is a bit of a web page guru apparently. He's in the process of helping make sure the everything gets backed up and is transferred to where it was supposed to go originally. Um, and so therefore, I'll then be able to access the information again and be able to upload again like how I was originally. So I'd say probably give it another couple of weeks, month at the most, just to play it on the safe side. I'm also trying to work up some time to work up an archives page for the blog to make it easier to get to the older episodes. So
Very cool.
that's where I'll have the MP3s available for previous episodes of this season, and then I'll just start posting up a link to the MP3s along with the links to the YouTube links and whatnot. So because actually, I think it was Tim in my gaming group up here made the comment that a friend of his, he's like, "Have you heard from so and so?" And I'm like, "No." And he's like, "Okay," because he's a little annoyed that he had a complaint about the fact of not being able to get just MP3s of the new season. I'm like, we've heard that before. We are working on it. So apparently Jorge is not the only one that's like, can I get MP3s, please? So, but yeah, I'd say give it another month, and we should have that taken care of.
And those of you who are waiting for MP3s, you will hear that announcement in a month or so after we get the MP3s.
Hopefully. Everything works right. So, anyway, but again, I mean, if we'd love to hear from you guys. If you got any questions or anything, let us know. Anything you want us to cover on the podcast. Thank you for joining us this week. Hopefully you will join us next week. And I have been your GM Byron.
I have been your co-host Howard.
And just remember the motto of Rho Pi Gamma is roll high,
play
well, die hard.